much is happening.
Yeah, since we last interviewed, we've everywhere has had another really good dose of rainfall, particularly the western areas. I mean, they got really pounded again at the end of last week, and even through Canterbury, and although it's a little bit variable through Canterbury, but again up through the Hawke's Bay and Wairarapa, they had very good rainfalls again last Thursday and Friday. So that was a week ago. And so that's just sort of put off irrigation demand again. In fact, we've still got places where they would very like to actually drain the place rather than have to think about irrigation.
And we're nearly into December.
I mean, without going and delving back through our 30-something years of records, I can't think of a season like that off the top of my head, where we've got to December and we basically haven't irrigated in parts of Canterbury and the Wairarapa and parts of Hawke's Bay. It's happened on the western areas, you get up around the Pukekohe, Matamata, Owakuni, those sorts of areas, Manawa too, when we've got that westerly pattern going on all the time with rainfall arriving. But for the eastern parts on the shallow alluvial soils, for us to have not irrigated very much is, I can't think of a season.
Which opens the door for me to suggest that because you're not irrigating, you've got plenty of time to work on your land use consents.
I wouldn't suggest that to any farmers on your program, because they'll tell you what else they're doing at the same time and not irrigating. But yes, one of the requirements of farming these days is the requirement to have a consent to farm, or to use the farm as a land use for a farming use as a land use. And it depends on what sort of nutrient zone you're in. So I think there's 3 nutrient zones: a green, which means that it's not an issue; orange is potentially a problem; and red, we know we've got a problem, and we've got some zones where, everybody knows that we've got those zones. So if you're in an orange zone, then January the 1st, 2016 was the date that you needed to have a major application for a land use consent. I wouldn't suggest that farmers get really too concerned about that, because I'm not sure that Environment Canterbury has the resources to do it and figured out exactly what the land use consents are going to look like.
You say 16 or 17?
16. And if your farming practice wasn't changing, so you weren't intensifying or changing land use, then you've got a 6-month hiatus. And there was a memo that came out on the Environment Canterbury website in May 2016 that said that you've got till actually June the 30th to actually get them in. So those that haven't actually put any in, nobody's getting a non-compliance notice at this stage. Excuse me. But it's something that farmers in orange zones, and there aren't a lot of orange zones around, they're mostly sort of in the area around the south of the Rangitata area. But all the red zones, January the 1st, 2017 is the first date. So you need to have your application in by January the 1st. And then if the farming practice isn't changing, so if you're staying as a dairy farm, or you're staying as a sheep and beef farm, or you're staying as a cropping farm, then June the 30th becomes the 6-month hiatus. Now, this is all about planners putting dates into practice. Not a lot of farmers are sitting on their backsides doing nothing between now and January the 1st, 2017. In fact, they've got more to do between now and January the 1st than most of the planners at Environment Canterbury can point a stick at. So it's the furthest thing from their mind at the moment. So not a lot of practical nous, I think, was considered about the dates. Why when it's a farming consent to farm, would you make January the 1st the date to do that when it's
the start of New Year? It's a calendar.
Well,
calendar decision.
Well, that's a calendar decision. Well, it's also a planner's decision, and planners make those sorts of decisions because
they'll all be on holiday.
They will be, so they wouldn't care less. But it just shows a lack of practical nous that in fact January the 1st is a terrible date to require farmers to have a consent in place. June the 30th would have been the right first date, with a 6-month hiatus after that. So anybody that's in a red zone, and so if you consider all the area between the Waimakariri and the Ashburton River, or just about the Rangitata River, then you've got to have a land use consent, and you need to be thinking about getting this done.
Are there people who can do it for you?
Look, a lot of, yes, there are. I mean, most of the consultancies around that are similar to ours will do those consents. But the main thing is you've got to have your farm environmental plan finished first. So that's a real key to having this. That's the cornerstone to your land use consent. And the other thing is it's all about record keeping. So you need to have a really good record of what you do and when you do it and how you do it. And that will go into your farm environmental plan and into your land use consent as well.
So it's more than just a diary note to say you put the rams out.
It's more than just a note to say that you put the rams out. You need to know when you applied fertiliser, how much, what type it was, when you sprayed, what you sprayed with, all those sorts of things.
The amount of spray you use.
Make sure that you can prove that you weren't within 10 metres or 10 metres, I think it is, of a waterway.
How the hell do you do that?
These days it's all GPS controlled these days. If you're spraying, most people have got GPS control on there where they know, so they can track exactly where they sprayed. They know exactly where they spread fertiliser. All these things are all GPSed and recorded these days.
So you've got your GPS at your tractor, obviously.
Yeah.
And that holds it. It's archived.
Yep. So you just download that and it's on your computer and you can track exactly where you spread fertiliser and how much you put on.
Whew. Okay, Tony, thank you very much indeed.